Um, the 470th greatest album of all time, according to Rolling Stone magazine, is 400 Degreez, the American rapper Juvenile. This is coming from Universal Records, released on November 3rd, 1998. This was also one of the biggest and earliest recordings from Cash Money Studios, which I am sure we will hear from again, just based on the names on this album, the featured list on this album. This album is just over 72 minutes long. Oh, what did you think of 400 Degreez?
Hey, it's Kyle. Just jumping in real quick to ask, do you approve this groove? Let us know in the comments. Give us a quick thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation. This was like middle school, right? Like for us, this was
Yeah,
this was
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
straight up middle school. I mean, back that ass up is like, for me that was the only song that I knew coming into this album. Really, I like
Yes.
certainly. I if you were alive in 1998, you know that song.
If you went to middle school dances and high school dances in the late 90s, then yes, you absolutely knew that song.
Yeah. And I came away from the album feeling like that's still my favorite song on the album. Everything else, like I liked the beats. The beats were kind of fun to listen to. It had energy. It was fun to listen to. There were some great bass lines throughout it, but I, I can see how people were into this album, especially at the time. But it wasn't for me. It just happened. It was just an album, I guess.
Yeah, and the album's credited a lot with putting the as I mentioned before, the New Orleans kind of collective on the map. So while the album is credited with being by Juvenile, it features Lil Wayne prominently. Obviously it's not his first recordings, but um, I mean, I was not aware, partially because of my own ignorance and tastes, but I was not aware of Lil Wayne until probably 2007 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it hip hop just wasn't my thing, and I just wasn't looking for it. So it was interesting. Like we said, I knew Back That Ass Up for sure. Um, but as I listened to it, I was like, damn, Lil Wayne's all over this. And then, as I read about it, I was like, okay, well, that makes more sense. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar take to it. Like, this is one of those albums to me where I think that it's on the list because of the style of hip hop that it brought to the forefront, which is
Mm-hmm.
that southern version of it that Lil Wayne's obviously a part of, Juvenile's obviously a part of. Outkast was before this, and had been very prominent leading up to this, but definitely just a different style. Um, so I think it's on the list for its contribution to
Yeah.
the genre
Yeah.
more than anything, because I mean the songs aren't really that memorable. Um, I think, again, I just think that they're probably just influential.
Yeah.
So it's included on the list, which I understand, I respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't take a whole lot from this one. Um, Back That Ass Up is a banger. It just is.
Did it feel did it feel dated to you, the album?
Yes.
Okay. That was kind of the
Yeah.
impression that I had. It just, I mean, it
And that's
felt it
and
felt like 1998. And
right.
not necessarily to any detriment, but yeah, it felt when he's making like references to Shaq on the Lakers. I'm like, yeah, this was a while ago.
Yeah. And and also, as being one of the most prominent entries into this specific subgenre, I guess, which on Wikipedia it's labeled as Southern hip hop. Um, Obviously, the genre has continued to evolve and take from it those influences, and I think the influences that have stuck around and evolved and continued to the untrained ear, which I think you and I are in this genre, we recognize that, but we're also like, but we've heard that for 20 years now, like in the songs that you and I have come across. So to me, that again, there was nothing revolutionary. the anecdote or the metaphor, I suppose, connection, I don't know, whatever, that I would draw to it is I didn't read Catcher in the Rye until I was like a senior in college,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if I've ever told you this. And I read it because I was an emo kid and I felt like I should. And when I read it, I understood Holden's perspective. I was like, yes, this is how well, for the most part, this is how I think and how most of my friends think. I don't understand why this book is so revolutionary. And then when you step back and you're like, well, it was published at this time and everything was, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Or I guess another parallel would be like if you grew up knowing the Star Wars story, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you just it's just so ubiquitous, and yeah, you know it, and I'm your father, yeah, I got it, and yoda da, da, da. And then you sit down like I did later in life to watch the Star Wars movies. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is yeah,
That's what it is.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? So that's how I guess I felt like listening to this album. It was like, okay, what
Yeah.
I yeah, this is not revolutionary to
Yeah.
me.
It
Like
wasn't like
this is
shocking or surprising
I
in
get
any way.
yeah. Which again, like as you look back and you say, well, I bet it's on the list because of its contributions. I have no choice but to believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now, while we were not blown away by this album, a lot of people were. This album went 4 times platinum. It's in. It says in here that in 2024, this album was ranked 38th and 44th in their best respective all-time best hip hop albums list. So this is a widely respected album. It went 4 times platinum in the U.S. It charted as high as 9 on the U.S. Billboard 200 and as high as 2 on the top R&B and hip hop albums. So it definitely charted. Like we said, I mean, Back That Ass Up is still played, rightfully so. And it was inescapable. I mean, I remember like going to the 4-H
I was
dances,
just,
dude, and like,
I was just gonna
yeah,
say something about the 4-H dances. Yeah.
and this is we talked about this when we talked about Boys to Men, but it's like, really, we're playing this for 12-year-olds. Like,
Yeah.
they say that when you go to school, you learn more on the bus than you do in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those songs, man, where people learn a lot.
Yep.
People
Yep.
learned a lot.
And they weren't fooling anybody with the radio edit of that song either.
It's so funny you say that because I don't remember a radio edit.
No.
No, like it to me there is like it was so clear what they were saying that it was not edited.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there was never a mystery to me about what the actual lyrics were.
No.
So I don't know anything we haven't uncovered in this one.
No, no. I gave it a 2.5 just because of that. I recognize the influence and the impact that it had, but I'm not gonna put it on again. If it does come on, like, oh yeah, okay. Like, I'm not gonna rush to shut it off, but it was fine.
Agreed. I'd go with the 2.52 because the only song that would have me come back to it is Back That Ass Up. I
Hmm.
mean, they can back that song up whenever they want. But yeah, I mean, unless I was in the mood to really be like, oh, I wonder what Lil Wayne sounded like back in the day. I'm not gonna revisit this one. Um, but yeah, that was what was it? 400 Degreez from Juvenile et al.
Hey, thanks for watching. We'd love to know what you think of this album, so let us know in the comments. Do you approve this groove? And as always, a quick thumbs up helps a lot. Subscribe so you can see all 500 albums, and we'll see you on the next record.